When I was a surf instructor in LA, I was so high on my own supply that people just kept coming to me.
I'm sure they did.
They, like, legit, I was one of those dudes that are like, what is this dude on? And people would say that all the time. They're like, is this like how you actually are? And I'm like, I am, it's fucking awesome, bro. Like, you know? And so it literally just would reverberate through the room, and everything, I started figuring it out. I'm like, oh, God, the universe is like electricity. Electricity never says no. It always says yes. It has one question. And that question is have you built the infrastructure for what you're plugging in?
I have such a special episode for you today. I feel like I've just met like a soul friend in Preston Smiles. We just sat down and meeting for the first time, recorded this episode. And if you are ready to access and be present to abundance in your life, this conversation is essential. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to Plenty. I'm your host, Kate Northrup, and together we are going on a journey to help you have an incredible relationship with money, time, and energy, and to have abundance on every possible level. Every week, we're gonna dive in with experts and insights to help you unlock a life of plenty. Let's go fill our cups.
Please note that the opinions and perspectives of the guests on the Plenty podcast are not necessarily reflective of the opinions and perspectives of Kate Northrup or anyone who works within the Kate Northrup brand.
I didn't realize how starved I was for being in a hub, because I lived in New York for 6 years, and I was like in this incredible circle, really in some ways, like at the, like I was in the backseat of the car with Marie Forleo when we were like headed to the beach. And she was like, hey, I just had this great idea. I was thinking about teaching a digital course to teach online marketing to women. What do you think? Yeah. And I was like, so like to be there at that time and just like be in it. And then we were like super not in it in a small town in Maine, and then being back in Miami. I don't think I could give it up again.
Correct. No, you guys are winning.
But you've always lived in LA.
I lived in LA.
Beforehand.
Yep.
So you've always been in a hub. Like that's
ish.
Austin's not new for you in terms of that.
No, but Austin is age appropriate. So
it's like
it
trends older?
Yes.
Or
yes.
Like families at least.
Families, it's an elevated sort of, like, if I had to explain, because I travel all over the world.
Yeah.
It's a super grounded, elevated sort of type of person who's like, we'll be in any given circle, and like at least 2 to 3 people will have private jets, and you would never know that.
Yeah.
They wouldn't dress like it. Their cars wouldn't look like it. It just wouldn't cross your mind that this person is that rich, right? But they're so grounded and super like, let's be friends, right? It's that moment where you finally get what life is about.
Yeah.
And then, everybody goes through their proving phase, and then there's a moment where you're like, okay, well, could die any moment now, so let's just have some fun.
Yeah,
and
let's
it's
just
that
be here.
Kind of city.
I love that.
Where people like each other and like hang out quite a bit. And when someone says, let's meet up, like they genuinely mean it, and they will make it happen.
Yeah, so there's follow through, there's integrity, which would be possibly different than your previous experience, because I don't hear that that's true about.
LA is tricky, man. It's so tricky. I grew up there.
Yeah.
So there's 2 LAs. There's the one people from Idaho and Minnesota LA, which is all like Kardashian and Hollywood.
Yeah.
And it's like up that way. And then there's the rest of the 16 million of us that are like blue collar, regular ass people. Yeah. And so I grew up in a part of LA where I knew everybody.
Yeah.
Like it was like a small town. And we actually did, I think we're about the same age. I think we actually are. I grew up in a time where, especially if you live in California, where there was no technology.
Yeah.
And I just was outside all day, every day.
Absolutely.
On bikes, like 20 miles away, skateboarding and doing crazy stuff. And like, there was like 100 kids in my neighborhood. And like,
you were just out.
Yeah, just gone.
It's amazing. Mm-hmm. So you just said something about like, everybody goes through their period of life of proving.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of your trajectory, like I've heard you speak about kind of where you grew up, what the environment was like. And so feel free to fill in any details you want there that would be relevant. But I'm just curious, in your trajectory, where would you say you are in that evolution of like, because I think particularly, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, particularly for men, there's maybe a little bit more conditioning towards that era of proving.
Yes.
You have 4 little kids. Their oldest is?
6.
Oldest is 6.
Yes.
Baby is?
2.
Okay, it's littles. Well, not as little as before, but like still right in there.
Yes.
Like where are you at with your relationship to proving?
It's a beautiful one. My whole thing around all of this is awareness proceeds choice, right? And we can't intervene in a world we can't see. And so the person who's the most aware at some level wins the game. Not that it's a competition, but they have more choice, right? And so I can see the places where I want to flex. And I had a recent discovery with my wife because we've been in such a good place. Like we had a couple years that were just absolute hell. And we came out of that and had an entire year of just pure connection and joy and play. But I caught recently that I was still moving from what we would call the drama triangle and proving that I wasn't a villain.
To her?
Yes.
Or just in general?
In general, but especially to her, right? Wanting to, because when you're in the drama triangle, right, there's the victim,
Perpetrator,
the villain, and the hero.
Okay.
And growing up, I had this beautiful, well-meaning Virgo mother who...
Love a Virgo.
Yeah. Right? My wife is also a Virgo.
My
I'm
husband
like
is.
surrounded by them, and I love them and I hate them, and it's so good, right? And so she was so particular as a mom that my little Leo boy energy was like, all right, you're not safe. So I'm going to hide everything about me from you. And, you wear a mask so long and you play a role so long that the role starts to play you. And I've gotten to the point where and we say this in our workshops all the time, you can't disown that which you've never owned. And so I'm in the stage of proving to myself that I can unhook from these stories and these ways that I've navigated the world that kept me safe. They made me a bunch of money, got me a bunch of notoriety and all that stuff. And what's the next evolution, right? None of it's bad or wrong, but like, okay, that no longer serves me.
Yeah.
Right? And to me, that is what keeps life interesting and exciting. I think proving is beautiful. And here's the piece I want to hit. So Cassius is 2. Kingston is 6 going on 7. Cassius would see the twins, Zahara and Zai, and Kingston.
They're in the middle.
Yes.
Okay.
Running around, jumping off of stuff, and you could see the envy in his eyes as they did cool stuff, right?
Yeah.
And at some point, that envy, right? Because we say a lot about these kind of words, but there's a beauty to it, right? He became so envious of his brothers and sisters running and jumping and doing cool stuff that he advanced by way of that envy, right? And so I'm proving to myself through envy, I'm looking at certain people who have pieces to the puzzle that I want for myself. And I'm like, yes, game on. That part, right? And just continuing to tinker.
Yeah. It's so beautiful. And the way that like when we are able to look outside ourselves for evidence of what might be possible and for inspiration, and let that jealousy or envy become inspiring to us and evidence as opposed to as proof that we can't have it, which is often conditioning. So you said something about awareness must precede choice. And I'm curious, I was just writing about this and I have my own thoughts, but I want to know what you think, which is like largely our unconscious is what is determining our behavior and therefore our reality.
Yes. And
we can't change things that we are not aware of. So how do we how do you like to position, either for yourself, for your clients, whatever, becoming aware of our unconscious limitations when they're unconscious, so therefore we can't see them? Like, what are your favorite ways to do that?
Well, that's a beautiful question. A part of the workshop that my wife and I lead, called the Bridge Experience, is literally that. It's an experiment. It's like if Spartan Race met and had a baby with like ayahuasca and like a safe room, right?
Amazing.
Or like escape room.
Escape room, yeah.
But for myself, one of the best ways is to notice the triggers, right? Of course. Like, of course you should drive like this. Of course, I said this to you. Like, there's been times where my wife and I are arguing and I have this thought in my head, she should hug me right now, right? And so I'll notice
in a fight?
Yes.
Interesting.
After we've made up, I'll make up a new story to be triggered by called "That's Her Job," right? And then have to work through like, oh, okay, but if you smelt it, you dealt it, right? Like, what is this really about, right? And so one of the easiest ways for me to find the next stage of my evolution is to look at what I get triggered by and to question it and really sit with it and like pull it apart. Like, is this a fact or is this a philosophy?
Right.
Right? Because if I treat it like a fact, it concretizes in my body, in my system, and it shuts down my seeing. So I say this in our workshop often. The moment I think I know Alexi, our relationship is over every time. And so I have to keep unhooking from what I think I know about her, because we're 11 years in, and rediscover her in that moment, And so there's all this new, juicy woman stuff that comes online when I stop putting her in a box.
Right.
And so the same is true for abundance. The same is true for money. The same is true for sex and play and levels of joy and pleasure that most of us have never touched, you know?
Well, because the mystery creates like the life force and the eros and the like aliveness.
Yeah, and it assumes that we're controlling any of this, right? Like my whole game is it's me and God. And the work for myself, I did a mushroom ceremony many, many years ago in Joshua Tree, California. And it was one of my first ones. I think it was the first one. And I had this moment out there deep in the desert where I started to experience these like enormous waves of like God-like presence. Like everything I saw, I was like, God, 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 God. And it just hit me. And then I had this thought, why don't you try to do this when you're not on mushrooms?
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And so the next day I went back to home and I went to a cafe and I set an alarm and I said, from this hour to this hour, I'm only going to see the face of God in everything. And I mean, when I tell you the level of high that I was on and what was reflected back and how people treated me as well, and like the attention and intention that went into like even opening the door at my local coffee shop and like the dogs that were around, and I just was blown away. And so we can't control any of this stuff, you know? We're co-creating and making ourselves available for as much life as we can hold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You talk about abundance quite a bit. You're an abundance teacher or, whatever, communicator. What do you think has set you up to be one of the ideal candidates to communicate on behalf of abundance or to share abundance with the world?
Man, there's so many pieces. I'll start with, I've felt many times in this lifetime, a good portion of my life, I was the opposite of that. I got in this work because I had a heart condition come up. And the heart condition came up because I was not processing the overwhelming traumas and all the shame that I experienced over a lifetime, starting at like 5 years old when my mom and dad argued about whether I was special needs or not. And, I look at my 5-year-old and 6-year-old now and I'm like, they're pretty conscious. So I can only imagine that if two people are arguing about whether this person is retarded or not, that would have an effect on that little boy.
Yeah.
And so over the years and time and years and years and years, I became much more insulated and a better chameleon and liar, but I still hated myself at some level, which goes back to the proving piece. And so to come from the depths of what could be considered hell and move through all of this trauma and recalibrate my nervous system to a place where, you know, I was rich before I was ever rich, right? When I was a surf instructor in LA, I was so high on my own supply that people just kept coming to me.
I'm sure they did.
They, like, legit, I was one of those dudes. They're like, what is this dude on? And people would say that all the time. They're like, is this like how you actually are? And I'm like, I am. It's fucking awesome, bro. Like, you know? And so it literally just would reverberate through the room and everything. I started figuring it out. I'm like, oh, God, the universe is like electricity. Electricity never says no. It always says yes. It has one question. And that question is have you built the infrastructure for what you're plugging it up? And so, you know, electricity says, you want to plug up an iPhone? Go for it. Want to plug up a Tesla? Go for it. Want to plug up an entire building? Go for it. But you better have the infrastructure. Yeah. And so I've been building a somatic body year after year after year. Whether I had it or saw it in the physical, I felt it in consciousness and kept moving through the stuff with my dad, the stuff with my mom, the stuff with whether I was worthy or not to have a seat at the table. And the more and more I move through that stuff, the more the toys and the outward expression shows itself.
So I've heard you talk about the laws of prosperity, laws of abundance. You don't say prosperity, laws of abundance. Is there one in particular, I mean, feel free to share as many as you want, but is there one in particular that's feeling really alive in your life and your own practice right now?
Ooh, there's so many. I'm in the process. We're finishing the book right now. It comes out in October.
I'm excited to read it.
Spiritual Millionaire out in October, out right now.
Amazing.
There's so much juiciness in it. I think the thing that's most alive for me right now is a sub-chapter around fasting from lack. Because, you know, I've noticed in our culture, right, especially the like health and wellness culture, we will intermittent fast and do all kinds of stuff, which is awesome, right? And get in our cold plunges and do that thing.
For Mises.
Yes, right? But the game, for me, the thing that I've noticed is fasting from struggle, fasting from lack, giving myself a break from the weapon of mass distraction as it pertains to like lack, limitation, and scarcity, and like really, really actually allowing myself to catch that I am not even consciously trying to think about beating my heart, that there's no part of me that's trying to figure out whether there's enough air, that I trust that the moon and the stars and the sun and the butterflies and all of it, like you know this, but we were talking about it earlier, we live on the 4 acres. I've made it a practice to get to know everything on that land. Every blade of grass, you know, there's the lizard that lives on the trash can named Leroy. There's Jason who lives outside my office. There's, you know, and it's like seasons. Right now we're in dragonfly season, right? And I just noticed like the cycles of life, and it's just cyclical and it's beautiful. So, fasting from lack, which on the other side of that creates a spaciousness for me to genuinely see how abundant life actually is when I'm not tuned in to trying to get more, right? More, hell yes, but more from where, right? Because the context determines the content. So when I'm the context of openness and pleasure and fasting from lack and truly getting like the synchronicities and the beauty of even this, I win. Yeah,
so good. I mean, the truth of our experience is absolutely abundance. And then the lie is scarcity. And I love that you used all the examples of nature because we are nature. And that's just who we actually are. And then we forget, and then we remember, and then we forget, and we remember. So you and I have in common a deep love and reverence for the nervous system. And I'm curious, how did you first learn, or did it first occur to you that we cannot work at the level of the conscious or the mindset alone in order to have transformation? What was one of your first experiences with that for yourself?
Oh man, there's been so many. I'll say this, one of my mentors who recently passed away a couple weeks ago, Scott Cody, many years back, I was a community organizer, and I created this thing called the Love Mob. And what we would do is go do organized acts of love all over LA, and then it spanned all different places. And Marianne Williamson and Michael Beckwith were some of the two first speakers that I brought on to help and march the streets and all that stuff. Yeah. And that led me into a group called ATL, which is the Association of Transformational Leaders, that Jack Canfield started. And like, I got into this whole world where I was still like this broke kid that just like loved love, you know? and from there, I met a gentleman by the name of Scott Cody. And he had worked with NASA. How do you say NASA? No. NASA.
Yeah, Nassau is a city in the Bahamas.
That's true.
Or an island.
Yes.
Or a city? I don't know. Regardless.
No clue.
NASA, National Air and Space Association.
Yeah. He had worked for them and all kinds of other big organizations around the somatic body and the nervous system. And for me,
that's really cool.
Yeah, I was like, what is that? Yeah. What do you even mean, right? But I understood it from a visceral level because when I had the heart condition come up, the cardiologist told me, he said, hey, this is what I'll say as a cardiologist. You're 25, you're a kid. You probably shouldn't be here. As you look down the hall, those are 60-year-olds and 70-year-olds.
Totally.
So as a doctor, pills, etc., as a conscious citizen, you should look at your stress levels and your diet.
Okay.
And that dude changed my entire world and the world of millions of people because I went cold turkey that day. I stopped McDonald's, all the things that I was eating, gone. I became a vegan. I denounced my religion. I like went down the rabbit hole. I was watching Zeitgeist and like trying to control my parents and all, the whole thing, right? I was like an angry vegan for a while.
Angry vegan.
You know them.
I do.
Yep.
Yeah.
All that to say, me making the choice cold turkey because I didn't want to die, right? That was the gift. The gift was it was so scary that I was like, done, right? Yeah. And so I started healing my body without understanding nervous system and somatics and all that stuff. And so when he came in and he worked with Strozzi, Heckler, and a whole nother crew of people, basically he introduced it. And from there, I was hooked, like absolutely hooked for myself first. And then I started really catching that it doesn't matter how much mindset work we use. If our body has a different experience, it will jump in. There's more body than there is mind.
Way more.
And it has its own intelligence, and the freer the body, the freer everything else is.
Yeah. What are some of the ways that, now, I mean, I think kids actually are just mostly teaching us about the body, but as a dad with all the little ones, like you just have so many kids and they're so small.
It's crazy.
We have two. They're 6 and 8. Yeah. And like, I feel like the biggest chaos days are, past us. But like, I just think about like double that and then they're younger and like, So from a parenting perspective.
Yes.
How do you practice nervous system regulation? How do you translate that to your kids or just through your parenting? Like, can you just talk about nervous system and parenting?
Yes, absolutely. They are the biggest teachers for me. I think there's many schools of thought that say when you learn something, the best thing you could do to really have it cemented in you is to teach it to somebody else. Yeah. And so we teach through our actions and who we're being, but we also teach with, like, I'll give you an example. Literally yesterday, my daughter, they have these forts that they build all through the house. Yep. And she was trying to put this blanket over the fort, but it wouldn't go over. And she kept going, and she's like making the loudest sound she possibly can over and over and over and over and over again. And I said, Zizi, do you need some help? And she's just going. She's riled up. And I said, baby, Daddy wants to help you, but we're going to take a deep breath into the bottom of our belly. And when we're regulated, and we use these words,
Yeah.
when we're regulated, daddy will come over there as soon as you ask for help. I want to help you, right? And so we're constantly teaching them how to get their needs met when regulated.
Right.
When they're not regulated. So for instance, our youngest son, Cassius, he's a firecracker, right? He came in ready, right? And crazy story about that one.
Named him.
Yes.
With it.
Yes. We didn't really catch it till we caught it.
Yeah.
He is a fighter for sure. So Cassius goes at it. He's the youngest. He's like, I'm gonna like, one of them will be having like, let's say like a popsicle, and he'll just walk up and be like, bam, and then take it and put it back in his mouth.
Amazing
and they will
when
cry.
it's the littlest. It's just the best.
And our kids are like hippies, right? So they have like literally, I'm not even joking, over 2,000 crystals in our house. They're their crystals. And they'll be like, my amethyst broke last night. And I'm like, how do you know this? Like, who are you, bro? I grew up in LA. What is going on here, right? But long story short, Cash is he runs a little hotter, right? And so we know that two things. One, connect before you correct. And that to a untraumatized human, let's call it, it takes anywhere from 20 minutes to, let's call it an hour to get back regulated. For somebody who's experienced deep levels of trauma, it could be days, right? It could be 4 days before that person is back online, right? And so our kids haven't been super traumatized. So what we'll do with Cash is we will say nothing, absolutely nothing. It's just about hugs. It's just about holding him on our chest. And when he's fully back, then we'll say, hey, Cassius, it doesn't work in our house to snatch things from everybody else, okay? And when that happens, this is also what happens, right? And but we do not talk to them until they're back online, basically. Yeah.
And for you, for people who maybe don't know what that feels like,
Yes.
for themselves to be back online, or for a child to be back online, or for their partner to be back online,
Yes.
can you describe what that sensation is for you?
Yes. So all humans, in my opinion, at some level are always looking to check off 3 boxes: approval, control, and if they do not get the approval or the security, which is the overarching one. Everybody's looking to feel safe. That's where I'm going with this. Safety is the biggest piece.
Yeah.
If you like me, I feel safe. If you approve of me, I feel safe. If I'm inside of the cave, inside of the herd, inside of the posse, I feel safe. If I'm outside, based on the animalistic part of me, I could be eaten by a tiger, etc., right? So when we don't feel safe, whether it's real or not, the body shoots a chemical cocktail to produce the act of safety, right? Because sometimes it could just be an email, but to the body, which hasn't caught up, right? The animalistic reptilian brain hasn't caught up to the prefrontal cortex and the nerd thinking brain.
Nerd brain.
Yes, right?
Yes,
and
I like
so
that.
when we go into these states, as you know, we can go into fight, flight, freeze, or appease, which is a new one. And whether you're aware of that or not, let's just call it the feeling of tightness, the feeling of agitation, the feeling of fear or unsettledness. Some people, that's their entire life. That's their baseline. And I know it because it was me. Right? Some people, they come into our workshops and we'll say, let your jaw go. And they'll go, what? And I'm like, let your jaw go. And they're like, no, I'm fine. We're like, no, you're not. You're like, right? And they don't know that they're holding so much tension in their jaw, right? Or we have this exercise where we allow people to share their deepest, darkest secrets in an arc with other people. And there's another exercise where that happens nude. But the first one, which is not nude, people will get up there and they'll go to share their thing and their hands will start shaking and they'll twitch and like the lip will start doing a thing and the body is saying, yo, we got energy, right? There's an unsettledness that sits in most people's lives. So the opposite of that, for those of you who've ever done MDMA or had a beautiful experience at church or a epic love-making session where after it was over, you just felt this calm, right? This like ease, safe in the body, all the way here, fully present. That is regulation. Yeah. And a lot of humans on this planet maybe visit that once every few months, if that. And it's one of the most important pieces to the healing of us as a species. Regulation. As much regulation as humanly possible.
And would you say that regulation is the same experience as feeling like an embodied experience of love? Or is that different?
Yes and no, because I have my concept of love is that we can't be outside of it. So for some people, it's this gooey thing where it's like, I'm in love with another being. To me, every breath we take is love. Yeah. This, we're inside of an organism, inside of an organism, inside of one. However, just the baseline of feeling safe and grounded and present in the body, whether you feel euphoric things or not, to me, that is regulation. And
what does regulation have to do with abundance and more specifically financial abundance?
Yes. So there's a line in Conversations with God, Book 1, where he says, you cannot have what you want, but you may experience what you have. And you and I have both had the pleasure of experiencing, lots of money and lots of toys and all of that stuff, and also being around people who have those things. And I'm sure the listeners maybe have the same experience where you've been around someone who has everything, but feels empty, dark, crunchy, right? Yeah. And so to me, abundance and the offshoot of abundance, one sliver of it called money, is all the same thing. It's material on God's green, beautiful earth that we use. And the entity that we call, whatever we call it, is a divine matchmaker. And our job in the matchmaking process is to say yes to our yes, is to be a full yes to the gifts, talents, abilities, dreams, desires that are on our heart, because those are our divine curriculum. And here's what's beautiful about money and the game of money. I have clients sometimes who come into my program and they'll say something like this: I'm just so bad with money. Like, I just really want to figure out this money thing because I'm just so bad with it. And I'll go, oh my God, really? How do you know? Well, I haven't been able to X, Y, and Z. And I'll go, is that a fact? Do you know that that's not coming? Well, no, but it hasn't come yet. And I'll go, okay, awesome. Well, let's talk. Let's see, right? So this was a recent one. Somebody came on and I asked her, about how much money do you think has been spent on housing for you? And she just you could feel the oh shit moment for her. And I said, no, but I want you to answer so everybody else can hear, right? You're what, 45? Yeah, okay. How long have you been in apartments, houses, or something? How long has money been flowing for you to stay in a house? 45 years. Exactly. Okay. So how much money have you manifested, called in to be in a sacred dance with so that you could have housing? She was like, probably $1 million. Yeah. Yes. So you want to tell me you're bad with money, but you've called in at least $1 million to make sure that you're housed? Right? It's a perception.
Yeah.
And so the more regulated I am, the more available I am to see the bullshit and the epic, right? Yeah. To see the truth with the eye behind the eye. So many of us are so blinded because we're hooked into the lack, limitation, and scarcity train that has been cleverly created, but is on its way out. And that's why people find you. That's why they find me. I've read your book. I loved it.
Thanks.
Yes. It's really cool what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the most important pieces to all the other pieces. Because a lot of people, we study a lot of stuff, but most people never study abundance. They never actually study, like, what does it actually mean? Why is it that when I'm looking at this tree, I say it has no value. Somebody cuts it down and it becomes paper, still kind of value, maybe whatever. Somebody puts green stuff on that paper and puts $100 bill on it. And now I go into a conniption, right? Like what is the moment?
Yeah.
How about we love the tree and the whole process and get that none of it matters and all of it matters because we're just little fucking ants. We'll be gone one day.
We're just a breath. Here's what I'm really present to right now, which feels really exciting, is that while I haven't read your book yet, I'm so excited to. I've listened to you on a lot of podcasts and just even listening to you right now through completely separate paths. We never knew each other before.
Correct.
Like whatever. We have come to fundamentally the same understanding of how the universe works, how the body works, how abundance works, how money works. And so we're only two people, but it just feels good to acknowledge that, like,
Facts.
it's probably true.
Facts.
If two people from opposite ends of the country, literally Maine and LA, from totally different, like, I haven't worked with the same people you've worked with. I don't even know who they are. You're saying all new names to me. I mean, I know who Jack Canfield is, but like it's cool.
Yes.
Right?
It's freaking
Isn't
awesome.
that cool?
Let me tell you how I found out about you.
Oh, please tell me.
Someone said to me, hey, there's this woman named Kate Northrup who is like the white version of you. And I was like, what? So I was like, let me find out.
I am the white woman, Preston.
Yes. So then we both went on Emily Fletcher's podcast, right?
Yes.
And so I went
Emily.
and looked and I was like, shut up. And I'm like, okay, let's go. I even commented on the thing. I'm like,
That's so sweet.
yes,
Yeah.
she gets it. Yeah. And you know who else? Who somebody brought to my attention recently and I absolutely love, and she's crazy and I love it? Amanda Francis.
Oh, I freaking love her.
Yeah.
I read her book, Rich as Fuck.
Yes,
What is her?
that.
Is that her book? Is that what it's called?
Yes.
I read that book. And I have some like hangover academic trauma. And there was something so beautiful about, like, she literally just published in a book.
Yes.
Sentence.
Yes.
Ended with LOL. I was like, I could do whatever I want.
Anything.
If she could, I can do anything. I can do whatever I
love
want.
her.
She is so deeply permissive.
That. She's the challenger in me loves people who challenge the status quo. And yes, I think that, okay, so I went and spent 8 days in the woods, 4 of which were by myself, no water. I had 2 gallons of water, and just out in the woods, butt naked, just sitting there, right?
Okay.
And no tent. And I had this beautiful, like, I had so many profound moments, but one of them was being able to witness nature, right? To be in it, of it, to hear the coyotes, the prettiest sound I've ever heard in my life, minus my children's giggles and my wife's orgasms, is the sound of the, like, 50 million birds at dawn when they sing. Oh my God, in the woods by yourself, it's orgasmic. But all that to say, what I started to understand, right, watching the ecosystem do its thing, you sit there long enough, it'll all come to you. Watching the birds pick off the worms, watching the ants gather and do their thing, watching the spider as I walk by go back into his little thing, like, oh, that black dude's here again. And then as soon as I leave, he'd come back out like, yo, where you at, right? Just watching it all, the coyotes howling. I recognize that birds of a feather flock together, that we always find each other, and that we are a response. You're a response. I'm a response to a call. We all heard the same call.
Yeah.
And I think it was Nietzsche that said, and those who were seen dancing were called crazy by those who could not hear the music. And it feels good to not be alone in the music that you hear.
It does.
Right?
It feels really good to listen to you say the things in a very different way than I would say them, that, like, I have learned from, not from a book, I mean, sure, I read a lot, like from an internalized experience. So anyway, thanks for being you.
Epic. Absolutely epic.
Coming back.
Yes.
I feel like there was an open thread with the victim, whatever you called it, with the triangle.
Trauma triangle.
Thank you. Trauma triangle.
Yes.
With your wife and coming into a newer piece of work and proving to her that you were no longer the villain.
Yes.
You talked about your Virgo mom. Somehow I feel like there was something else in there that maybe you need to say, or that would be relevant to somebody. Like, what was that about for you? Do you think it was just a repetition of your relationship with your mom? And what did you learn? And like, what are you doing differently now?
Yes. So here's my understanding thus far is somebody asked me on a podcast many years ago, you coach all these people. You're sort of like a generalist, but also a specialist. What's the thing? And I said, the thing is easy. It's parents, sex, and money, right? And parents dictates the other two, right? And I think we all have seasons where we chip away at what's not ours anymore. And they cycle and circle just like the seasons on the planet. And so I'm in a season where I'm catching a detail. I'm catching an essence. I'm catching something that no longer fits in my system, and it's foreign now. And I tell my clients all the time, the moment something is up for you, it's already downhill. The moment it's up, we're going downhill. The healing is already there because the awareness, the moment I have an awareness, oh, this doesn't fit anymore. Boom, it's done. Right? Now it's just a formality. Now I'm going to play the game and notice and shift and I have more to play with because life would be super boring if we didn't, right? When I didn't have a bunch of money and stuff, all I wanted to do was get a bunch of money and get to zero, which is a very masculine thing, right? Like, got there, done, landed, nothing more to do, nothing more to say, bro, right? And then there's a moment where the allure of that wears off.
Yeah.
And you get like, okay, so this whole thing is stupid in some ways. Yeah. It's just, we're just doing this thing. Might as well make it fun. Yeah. Might as well make it interesting. And what legacy do I want to leave by way of my way of being? What, people like sports and stuff like that. We're nerds in this way. You're a nerd, I'm a nerd, and probably everybody in this room is, in that I'm like a heat-seeking missile for how good can it get. Yeah. And I also think everything's a prayer. And so me extricating and doing the surgery and giving the eviction notice to the stuff that no longer fits is like my favorite quote from the Gnostic Gospels of Thomas. If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. That is the place I'm in right now. It's now here, and it will destroy me if it stays. And so all of life is circulating. Absolutely everything. The air in this building, the cells in my body, it's all circulating. And the only time that we make it hard for ourselves is when we stop the circulation. A body of water without an inlet or an outlet is a swamp, and swamps carry diseases. There's a purpose for them at times, and yet we need the inlet and the outlet. That's where I am. You got
to make it move. So is that why you decided to write a book? Because presumably you could have done that. This is your first, not your first book.
My first book was Love Louder.
Okay.
The second book, Alexi and I wrote together called Now or Never.
Okay.
And I told myself I'd never read another book because it's, as you know, a whole feat to do so.
Yeah.
But my hand was forced.
Okay.
I had to.
So this is part of that.
Yes.
What is within you.
That part.
You have to do this.
Correct.
And
because there's so many people that can't make it to the workshop.
100%.
Can't buy the thing.
No, it's like, you got to write a book.
Correct.
I'm just like, absolutely.
Yes.
What's it been like for you, especially given that you said never again? What's the writing process been like?
Okay, so I'm going to just also give you one more quick
Okay.
story. So I'm in the woods by myself. Day 3, I barely drank any water for 24 hours, and I'm like not hallucinating, but I'm going in.
Kind of.
Yeah, I'm going in. Right.
Yeah.
What got me to the dance was the inner mystic, and yet when it started to happen, my ego mind jumped in, and the warrior and the king said, "Let's do it. We can make a business out of this." And I started to see what I could do for my family.
Yeah.
Right? Which is beautiful.
Yeah.
And yet I'm out there hallucinating, and the medicine of
Gotta call a thing a thing.
yes, the medicine of the woods
Yeah.
said, "Bro, it's time to come back." Right? It's time to come back to what got you to the dance.
Wow.
Trust the spiritual aspect of yourself. Trust the part of you that was so tuned in and tapped in. I mean, I got 3 crazy stories. I have so many, but 3 where I listened, and 1, I didn't die because my friends were shot that day. I listened. The voice said, "Don't go." I didn't go. All my friends were shot. Best friend shot, killed. I listened. So on a blind date, I wasn't going to go on a date. The voice said, "Go on the date." I go, I meet my wife. 2 years later, I'm in New York. I sit down with a friend at a cafe. The voice says, "Get up and go to buy some boots." And I'm like, "That's stupid. What do you mean?" But it's been happening my whole life. So I said, okay, I'll go. I go up into Barney's or something. I get to the 3rd floor. The voice says, "Go back downstairs." I'm like, bro.
The spiritual temple of Barney.
It's crazy. Watch this. I go. I get to the door. As soon as I open the door, I hear, "Skirt, no." And I see this woman flying through the air. And she lands. Her brains splatter out the back. And I instantly know why I'm there. And I run over to her. A doctor comes from that side. A nurse comes from that side. Everybody else is like one of those because it's horrific and it's Mother's Day. And I know. So I go with her and go into an altered state. I'm holding her feet, praying, the whole thing. Long story short, there's a moment where I know. The voice says, "Open your eyes." I open my eyes. She takes her last breath right in front of me. And I go, "Okay, got it." And so I share all that to say, that voice came back and it said, "It's time to go back to what got you to the dance." And a part of that is going to be you sharing this wisdom because you have the unique experience of being quote unquote a poor person and quote unquote a rich person. And you know what's really going on here. And so as an intermediate, this is your message to bring forward. And I said, "Spirit, got it." What's beautiful in all transparency is this is probably the writing process. And this whole process has been one of the, let's call it, least money-making years of my life. And yet it's been one of the most fulfilling. And I also trust and know and understand what God is doing. It's using me.
Yeah. When you say, you held your hands out, it's, I've been quote unquote a poor person, quote unquote rich person. And it's a unique experience of having experienced both.
Yes.
So you can know what's really going on here. So what's really going on here?
Love. It's all love. It's all beautiful expressions of love. It's just a dance. None of it matters. All of it matters. We're all marching towards death. There is a certain number of beats in that heart and in this one and in every heart. And there will be a day when that beat doesn't do it again. And when we get to that day and that moment, there will be a reckoning, a beautiful one. The cool part from what I've understood in my ceremonies and in my journeys is that quote unquote ending is just a new beginning because energy can never be born and therefore never die. And so we will leave these epic skin suits, but the soul will dance on and we will potentially have an opportunity to come back or just keep dancing in the cosmos. And so it's while we're here, we might as well play with the materials of the earth and imbue them and love them and see them and go, yes, yes, right? Out of all the glasses in the whole wide world, out of 8 billion people on the planet, we found each other. We found each other out of 8 billion people. That's a miracle. Like these fake ass plants, out of 8 billion fake ass plants, this is the dance, right? Yeah. This beautiful set, this apartment was always yours. It was yours 30 years ago. This Indian thing, which is awesome and colorful, was mine 50 years ago when it was something else. Because we all signed up to play. Mm-hmm. So it takes all the pressure off of making everything so, this is gonna make my life. Yes and no. Yeah. The Target shirt that I wear is just as important as the $500 shirt, right? Because it's the materials, we said yes to each other. So my only job is to say yes. The rest of it is good to go.
Just like electricity.
That.
So great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Literally, thank you. Because there's a whole bunch of stuff that nobody sees that you do internally, externally, every single day to be in a position to ask these type of questions, to be in a position to hire a staff, to show up, to having an extra apartment, to being a good mom, to showing up and kissing your husband when he walks through the door. All that stuff doesn't get missed on a person like me. I understand genuinely to the degree that I can, what it's taken for you to be sitting here, right? And so for everybody else viewing, listening, all that stuff, I know you get it. I know you appreciate it, but like, hear it from somebody else. Who Kate is and what she has brought to the table is big, and it's making a difference, and her name is flying around because it should. Thank you.
Thank you. So, where can people find your book? Where can they connect with you?
PrestonSmiles.com/book. Hey, you know what's cool? I got the first copy the other day.
Let's show it.
It's right there in the top of that backpack.
Yes.
Yep.
Don't mind while my husband goes through your stuff.
Yes, do it, bro. There's.
Yeah, let's put it out here.
So this is.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought it.
So this is it, and it isn't it, because there's way more to go, but this is what it's going to look like. Yes. So.
Hold. Okay.
Yes.
Amazing. Okay, PrestonSmiles.com/book.
Yes. Or at Preston Smiles on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook or whatever the case.
There it is.
Yeah. So.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
So good. Thank you. What if you were making great money scaling a business that you love while having more time for the other things that matter, all while being relaxed? That reality is possible for you when you heal the way you work. For a limited time, the doors are open with special bonuses to my self-study program, Heal the Way You Work, which allows you to dive into a revolutionary approach to time and energy management based on the truth of who you are. What's inside this program are the secrets that have helped me and hundreds of other students be able to make more money while working less and having more time for the things that matter. Head over to healthewayyouwork.com to learn more.